Jessica Levinson is a professor of law and governance at Loyola Law School, and Peter Mathews is a professor of political science at Cyprus College. They're here to talk more about the today in Russia news. Okay, here's the key part of that statement from the FBI. We have grave concerns about material admissions of facts that fundamentally impact the memo's accuracy. Jessica, this would appear to be a last-ditch effort to try and stop the president from releasing the memo. It's very rare. If this doesn't work, how long will it be before Director Wray is the second FBI director to be fired by Donald Trump?
Well, potentially not that long if we just look at history and we look at his pattern of firing people and his pattern of firing people who speak out against him. I did want to pick up on one thing that you discussed with the
Yeah, with Juliet, yeah.
With Juliet, where Speaker Paul Ryan said, let's just let all this information out and you picked up on the word, let's cleanse the organization. But I actually picked up on a different word, which is that basically disclosure and sunlight as the best disinfectant. That's almost word for word quoting a really famous passage from a Supreme Court opinion that Justice Brandeis wrote. And I think that Speaker Ryan it may be someone who was a law student or former lawyer just wrote that, but I think he may be trying to telegraph something to the judiciary of saying this information should really be out here, and you judges, if this gets to you, then I don't think that you should do anything about it because we're all about disclosure. Now, of course, disclosure is great unless you disclose lies. Right. And that's what the FBI and the Department of Justice are in an entirely unprecedented move saying.
And they don't want to disclose, the Democrat member that goes with it, which would be a counterpoint. But Peter, the administration is arguing, putting this memo out there, it's all about being open and honest and transparent. Listen to this.
He absolutely wants transparency.
We want it to be a deliberative process, and we respect the process, the transparency and the accountability.
We've said all along from day one that we want full transparency in this process.
So everyone got their talking points, they stuck to script, but given the administration's record so far, Peter, honest, open transparency, it's a little stretch for these guys.
It's very strange because the opposite of transparency. They're putting out information that is inaccurate, that's been shown to have been altered by Nunes. Not to mention it's only a synopsis of the overall underlying information and misleading. It could be very well so. So transparency is the height of hypocrisy, using that word, in my view. And
it's also been revealed that Nunes didn't even read the source material.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just basically the staffers' opinions all pulled together. Okay. One of the big issues here is, did the White House work with Nunes in putting this memo together?
Did Devin Nunes work with anybody in the White House on that memo?
Not that I know of.
He wouldn't answer that question.
Right, and I just don't know the answer. I'm not aware of any conversations or coordination with Congressman Nunes.
Jessica, again, credibility issues here when it comes to Nunes and the White House. If there was some kind of collaboration between the congressman and the administration, what are the implications?
Well, I think the implications are that it just further undermines this document. So we already know that the FBI and the Department of Justice have said it's not only dangerous, but it's also misleading. So it will put us in a position of threatening our national security, and it will give the public the wrong impression. But if you add to that the Trump administration is potentially, and it's interesting because Representative Nunes also had kind of a non-denial denial. If they're working in concert, that just goes to show, I think, not necessarily what legal implications are, but what political implications there are.
Part of the campaign to discredit the FBI and to prove there is this bias, this deep state operating there against the president, has been to highlight these text messages between these two agents who were having an extramarital affair. And they were exchanging messages that were critical of candidate Donald Trump. CNN has obtained emails that show Peter Strzok, one of the agents, supported reopening the Clinton investigation once the emails were discovered on disgraced former Representative Anthony Weiner's laptop, according to a source familiar with Strzok's thinking. Peter, again, this seems to undermine the theory that, Strzok and the woman, the other agent he was having the affair with, were leading the Trump resistance.
It totally undermines it.
And the texts don't even support that anyway. So what have they got here?
It totally undermines it. It's a contradictory, and I don't think people are going to believe it once they see the text are contradictory to what they were saying. So I think that this is really an affront to the rule of law. This is much deeper than a few memos going around. The concept of the rule of law is that no one is above the law, that the rule of law should apply equally and evenly to everyone, including the president. And here's inside workers like Nunes trying to give the president inside inside job, so to speak, to let him get away with things by changing all the evidence and information that's around. That's a complete undermining of the rule of law principle.
And, I mean, let's be clear. This is what would-be or wannabe autocrats do. So we're looking at someone who's not respecting how there's a separate branch, the legislative branch that functions, who's potentially conspiring with Representative Nunes about the memo, who's undermining the Department of Justice, who should be serving, the members of the Department of Justice serve the Constitution, and they serve our country, not the president. And so this kind of consolidation of power and undermining of the FBI investigation, and that's kind of the last point that you talked about with Juliet, and that's the thing that worries me the most, which is, what if you come out with this smoking gun and a third of the country says, I'm sorry, I saw those text messages between those two FBI agents.
I want to get to this reporting from the New York Times. Mark Corallo, CNN, understands that he has received this request for an interview by Robert Mueller. He was the spokesman for the Trump legal team until he resigned in July last year. But the New York Times is adding this. Mr. Corallo is planning to tell Mr. Mueller about a previously undisclosed conference call with Mr. Trump and Hope Hicks, the White House communications director, according to 3 people. Mr. Corallo planned to tell investigators that Ms. Hicks said during the call that emails written by Donald Trump Jr. before the Trump Tower meeting, that was one with every Russian in New York who turned up, including a lawyer linked to the Kremlin. This is also one where Mr. Trump was eager to receive political dirt about Mrs. Clinton from the Russians. Hope Hicks apparently said it will never get out. That left Mr. Corallo with concerns that Ms. Hicks could be contemplating obstruction of justice. Lawyers for Hicks deny that she ever said that. But Peter, again, it seems that they keep building this very strong case from the president on down for obstruction of justice. A
pattern throughout the administration at the highest levels. It's not just the president, obviously, and now you got Hope Hicks and many others involved with this pattern of obstructing the truth, obstructing an investigation that was ongoing and legitimate. This is very dangerous for our constitutional system, obviously.
Very quickly, Jessica, how serious could this be?
It could be very serious, but I would say that statement of it will never come out, I'm not seeing, oh my God, we've got obstruction of justice. Obstruction of justice is a very specific statute, and it requires a corrupt intent. That could say, I hope it, I mean, you could imply, I hope it never gets out, I don't want it to ever get out, or we'll make sure that we're protecting the president. Wanting to slow the investigation and wanting to ensure that things don't hit the public eye is very different from let's go down the prongs of the statute.
Okay, glad we added that in. So Jessica and Peter, good to see you both. Thank you.
Thank you.